Let's bring in today's panel, Scott Martin from Kingsview Asset Management and Guy Benson from townhall.com. They are both Fox News contributors. Guy, this is tremendous news. I mean, tremendous in a big sense. We'll see how it all plays out. But this is essentially a financial embargo of a country. That actually is an act of war. An embargo, although we are technically still at war with North Korea, that never ended in the 50s. But this is significant. What made China blink?
Well, I think part of it has to be the leadership of the president and the tone that he's taken, which has caused a lot of hand-wringing in Washington, but it's getting people's attention. And I think in the past where U.S. presidents said, we might do this or we could do that, the North Koreans and other important players in that milieu sort of said, all right, yeah, that's empty talk. I think there's at least doubt about how empty that talk is with President Trump, which may have spurred some of this. So clearly this is the type of movement that U.S. foreign policy experts and diplomats have been trying to get and trying to achieve for many, many years. The caveat always has to be put in when it comes to China and North Korea. Right. A heavy dose of skepticism and circumspection is in order.
Yeah, but
because
Scott, go ahead. Because quickly.
Well, because of the history here and the history at play of China making some moves and then sometimes backtracking. Okay. But on its face, this is big news.
Scott, I'm looking at the executive order, though, and it is very specific. This is very different from anything that has been ordered concerning North Korea in the past. It really does differentiate. It shows why this thing was taken so seriously by the Chinese. But sometimes what's good for our national interest or international interest is not good for the markets. And you see the way there was not a big sell-off at the end of the day, but we're down 53 points. The market didn't take it well.
No, and David, you're right. I think longer term, what's good for the nation's interest is good for the stock market's interest and your 401k. But short term, like you mentioned, I mean, this could work out a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of wrangling that's going to go on. And just look at the market in the last, say, month to 45 days since North Korea has been acting up with respect to Guam and sending missiles over Japan. The market's flat to slightly down over that period. So to Guy's point, seeing how this all works out, and yes, the tone, I agree, is different than it has been in previous administrations, which is encouraging, still has a lot of impact on the market short term.
Okay.
All right, crunch time on Capitol Hill. The White House stepping up pressure on GOP lawmakers to support the last-ditch effort to repeal and replace Obamacare. Fox News' Mike Emanuel is live in D.C. with the latest on this. Mike.
Well, good afternoon, Melissa. The message from the White House to Republicans is it's time to keep this promise they've made to the American people for 7 years to get rid of Obamacare.
The question that people ought to ask is, who do you think will be more responsive to the health care needs in your community? Your governor and your state legislature, or a congressman and a president in a far-off nation's capital? Right. I mean, this is the concept of federalism upon which our Constitution was framed.
There are a number of GOP senators to watch, whether they are a yes or no. The first three are the ones who defeated health care reform in July: Collins, McCain, and Murkowski. Conservatives Cruz and Lee sound open to this plan, but aren't a definite yes yet. Then moderates Capito and Portman have had concerns over the summer. One Senate Republican had this message for the undecideds.
There's no free lunch, and you're not going to get one with this bill. There are trade-offs. But if your litmus test is, as is mine, is it better than the Affordable Care Act? Clearly, the answer is yes.
Conversations continue, but sources on Capitol Hill suggest we won't know for sure if they have 50 votes until early next week. On the other side, Democrats are attacking this plan for a variety of reasons. One says it reflects misplaced priorities.
As the President and many of my Republican colleagues want to substantially increase military spending, they want to throw 32 million Americans off of the health insurance they currently have because supposedly they are worried about the budget deficit.
Sanders, of course, wants to go left of Obamacare to a Medicare for all type plan. Melissa?
Mike, all right, thank you. We'll go back to our panel. Guy, it's not perfect, obviously, but it's a step in the right direction. Better is better, no?
I would agree, and I just want to respond quickly to that soundbite
Yes,
there from
please
Bernie
do.
Sanders.
It was really something.
So he's very upset that the Republican plan would throw 32 million people off of their plans, which is not true, by the way. That's a gross distortion based on CBO stuff that we could get into if we had more time. But the Bernie Sanders single-payer plan that he's put out would throw 156 million people off of their plans and put them all into a government plan like the VA with no way of paying for it, $32 trillion over 10 years. It takes a real set to attack the Republicans for throwing people off of their plans when your plan would do that for multiple, orders of magnitude more Americans. That is breathtaking.
Scott, I don't know how you're going to follow that, my friend. Go ahead, give it a shot.
Gosh, I mean, yes.
Guy said
well
it
done,
all.
Guy. Yeah, it does take a lot of onions to do that, but that's what Bernie Sanders does, right? I mean, he really does go out and make these histrionics, and unfortunately, Guy, as you know, people believe it. People follow this guy and trust him, and that's really the scary
But what
thing,
about
Melissa.
this plan, though, Guy? I mean, do you like it? Should they go for it? Will we get it? Is it a step in the right direction?
My understanding is that they are sitting at about 48, 49 yes votes at this point in the Senate. Rand Paul sounding like a pro-Chuck Schumer no. Susan Collins probably ending up at that camp as well. It comes down to Murkowski and McCain. I don't love the plan. I think it's probably better than Obamacare. There's a few tweaks I'd like to see. Very little time to get that done.
Scott, real quick vote.
Which is why we got to focus on tax reform. We got to focus on tax reform instead. A lot more bipartisan agreement there. Get that done first. Health care after that.
Gentlemen, you're both brilliant. Thank you.
They are brilliant.
Thanks,
By the way, I think McCain will come over. I think Lindsey Graham will talk him over into it. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, if